morning. I'd like to thank the organising committee of the 39th Asian Racing Conference for the kind invitation to address you today. It's a great privilege, and I understand people are representing many countries throughout the world, so possibly I can just offer a small few thoughts about how my business functions, how I got to where we are now, and how we see the future. From our childhood years, we learn to understand that the key elements in our lives are good health, a need for compassionate love and care from friends and family, with the need to be engaged in a business or industry which allows us to quantify what we're looking for and develop a lifestyle that would give us an opportunity to have a career that will give us a quality of life that we might be looking for in the longer term. As the well-used expression goes, if you do what you love and you work in an industry that you really adore, you never work a day in your life. When we're very young and we're at school and we're in the school ground with kids our own age, we enjoy their camaraderie, their laughter, their goodwill, sharing of experiences. And it's very loud sometimes out in the child's playground because they're joyful. They just want happy times. They want a quality of life at that very young age that gives them an expectation of what their lives and their family might expect going forward. As we go through life, we're basically told in a public environment to tender that excitement. Don't speak loudly in public places. Certainly don't shout. Don't become joyful. Don't scream. Don't experience in a public environment what you have done when you're very young in the school ground. There are only a few places really where you can enjoy things in that fashion, a sporting event and obviously the race course. When I established STAR 3 decades ago, I asked a very learned person, what should I ask a possible first-time investor, what they're looking for? What are the key elements? This was a mature age man who'd enjoyed great success in the industry, and he said, only two things to ask. Do you have the dollars? And ask what the wife says. And I said, well, okay, what if the wife doesn't enjoy the idea? And he said, move on. Well, these days you couldn't begin to ask the latter. I guess in some way you can decide that it's worthwhile finding out what the person is looking for, why they want to engage in racehorse ownership. And of course now we're actively canvassing interest in ownership with women. So you couldn't begin to ask the latter anymore. As it turns out, in fact, a lot of women want to become owners anyway. I believe that people are looking for a number of things when they want to have a share of a horse or an ownership in a horse. They're looking for friendship. They're looking for life to work with or to go to the races with like-minded people. They're looking certainly for the opportunity of success, but they're looking for an environment where they're welcomed, where they're made to feel special, and where they're informed about what's going on. In the 30 years I've had STAR, that's the biggest change, in my view, in our industry. Technology has changed, information and technology has changed communication. If we don't communicate with owners, we don't have them. That's what they're looking for. These days, trainers produce track work videos, footage, jockey information pre and post race, weekly reports, and often they'll be invited into the inner sanctum of trainers' stable to have a look at their horses. Certainly on race day, they're very engaged with the people who manage the horse and who train the horse. When we first started the business, when I established STAR, there were 6 owners involved in every horse, maximum. About 10 years after that, early 90s, we moved from 6 to 8. Then we moved from 8 to 20, maybe 10 years ago, and now theoretically there could be hundreds. We've always maintained in our business that we want to keep the ownership relatively small, to 20 shares, to 20 people, 10 shares, simply because it allows the owner and the people involved with the managing of the horse an opportunity to interact on race day and elsewhere through the racing, through the racing year. I found that over the years, a lot of people who want to be involved in racing have a variety of reasons. They've said to me that they've harboured an interest in racing for a long time. It wasn't available to them initially to buy shares in horses years ago because historically this country from many decades ago was built along the lines of studs owning horses, single people owning horses, and multiple ownership wasn't something that was conceived. When I established STAR in 1993, I was really delighted that the federal government had instituted a plan to say that if you wanted to hold a license to syndicate horses in this country, you needed to have a financial services license. We need to produce prospectus, product disclosure statement, as we call it, for every horse that we sell. It allows potential investors to determine what that horse has cost at the sale. We generally buy from public auctions, so the sale price is disclosed. There are some startup costs that syndicators like me pay, and the owner or intending owner then can determine whether he or she is comfortable with that. When you buy anything retail, clothing, cars, whatever, you don't know what the hidden costs are. We produce them in this prospectus, and I find it's very comforting in allowing people then to make the final determination on whether they want to be involved in the ownership of that particular horse. As was explained initially, when I started my business 30 years ago, I had all my horses with Gay Waterhouse. We had spectacular success, and 10 years ago, I could see that Chris Waller would be the new force in racing in Australia and New Zealand and globally, and that was a good plan. All the horses now are trained by Chris. He's master trainer, he gives us fantastic service, and together we've formed a very formidable partnership. People often ask me, where do new owners come from? Well, the answer is everywhere. Everybody is a potential racehorse owner. You just have to engage in the dialogue. And often if I'm in a public place, people will say, well, what do you do? And I say, I buy and sell racehorses. So initially there's some, I guess, bemusement because they think it's quite strange that a mature age woman should be involved in that business. But what does that actually mean, you buy and sell racehorses? So I explain what I do and that I'm a licensed syndicator in Australia and I'm one of the most successful syndicators of all time. Our horses have earned for owners well in excess of $100 million, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of high quality racehorses over the years. But how do I become involved in it? Well, I explain that we go to horse sales just like retailers go to trade fairs. We look at a whole variety of horses and decide which ones are going to be suitable for us. So I think that the key element is to find out what people are looking for. What do you want? Why are you making the call? What do you want from me by asking about a possible interest in a racehorse? I had a man phone me about 3 years ago, and he phoned from Perth. He said, my wife died, I have 3 young children in their early teens, and we had a fairly significant insurance policy. And he said, I'm finding that I just want something in my life that is different. And I said, how old are the kids? And he said, 11, 14, and 15. I said, you don't need to talk to me. You put those kids through uni, you look after the children, you come to me in a few years and I'll help you. And now he's one of my main owners. So when people say to me they want to share in a horse, mostly they don't really know what they're asking for. I say to people, do you want a filly or a colt? Oh, well, there's a difference. Do you want a Oh, okay. Do you want a middle distance horse? Do you want a stamina horse? So in this country, I equate it to the Olympics. And I said, are you looking for Usain Bolt, sprinter? Are you looking for Kathy Freeman or the Kenyan runners in stamina, boy or girl? Didn't know there was a difference. Well, there is. And I think if you explain to people that, as in human endeavour and human athletics, the equine industry is the same, boy or girl, what are you looking for? We often try and encourage first-time owners to become involved in the ownership of a filly because that may offer those people an opportunity to participate in a horse that would allow them at a later time some sort of residual on-sale value. We were very privileged 14, 15 years ago to own a colt that was sold for $28 million. He earned the owners $2.5 million on the track, and he became a really successful stallion. But really, it's wishful thinking to imagine that you're going to have a high-quality stallion publicly syndicated. It can happen. It's all part of the journey. Post-sale service is the key to retaining customers. It's just as simple as that. There's no secret. If you look after the customer along the way and you understand that he wants to be cared for, he wants to be informed, he wants communication from the source regularly, you're some chance to retain their custom later. Clearly, it's a difficult business. There are over 50,000 named horses in Australia of all ages. You go to the races in Sydney on a Saturday and there are 10 races. You go to the races in Sydney on a Saturday and there are 10 races, which means over nearly 50,000 people have gone home on a Saturday. They haven't won a race in Sydney or Melbourne on that day. However, what they might have done is go to Kembla Grange or Geelong or Warrnambool, and it's the same thing. They've won their race. They just want the photograph on the wall. If you can allow those people the understanding that you recognise their contribution to the industry, you care about them, you understand their family interest in racing, that you want them to enjoy the journey, and that might not be the final race that they're going to win during their racing life with your business, then you're some chance to retain them for a later life. One of the things I decided when I established Star was to keep the client base smaller than most. I don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We have probably 1,200 people who are active owners, but over our lifetime of my business, I've had in excess of 15,000. Some of the people are not racing anymore, they've retired, they're not able to participate, but the people who are active owners now understand that all we're trying to do is give people a great time, a great thrill, to care about them, to get to know their family, to enjoy the experience of owning the horse, to feel proud of the horse, to feel proud of the fact that Chris Waller trains their horse, and to give those people an opportunity to go to the races with everybody they know. Because the idea of going to the races with only 2 people, 3 people involved in the horse have long gone. It's one of the few businesses where you can actively canvass an opportunity to have all of your people, all of your family, your friends, your workmates, your neighbours involved in the race day itself and watch your horse race. So if we can look after people and make sure now that we realise that they are the key element to success, most of my people are not punters. It is not the driving force for owning a share of a horse. It's the thrill of the win. The late Tommy Smith, our legendary horse trainer in Australia, used to say to me, for a fraction of the price, you have 100% of the thrill. And it hasn't changed in 30 years. We need to understand people want information every day, all the time, everywhere. When the horse is racing, what are the expectations, when will he race again, what will happen, what will be the career path for that horse, when the horse is not successful, will he be cared for, will this business look after him and make sure that the welfare of the horse is of paramount importance. And there'll be a time, I'm sure, when owners will want information direct from the training track. May not happen at the moment, but I can see before very long there'll be videos, information, cameras. Every day there'll be photographs of the horses daily. There'll be videos taken in the stables when the horses are being walked and cared for. So what didn't happen 30 years ago is happening all the time now. It's just the best industry in the world. If you look after the people, they'll look after you. As Chris says all the time, if you look after the horses, they'll look after you as well. It's just the best business. So thank you for letting me talk to you today. I'll be here all day. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to come and talk to me.